This is Ed, and as you can see, well, you don't maybe know that that's downtown San Diego. And this picture is beautiful, of course, but the CEO of the San Diego Economic Development Corporation okayed me using this because they know that I'm producing shows, oftentimes promoting scenes around San Diego. So they said, well, use this. This is a good one. So this is a visual from a helicopter. It was professionally shot, and it's looking down on the tourist area along San Diego Harbor and a seaport village. And in the middle there is the convention center. And uh, on my right, the tall buildings, those are all hotels right along the waterfront. And the Marriott and the Hyatt Peaks are down the end. And what's not visible on the other side is a giant Hilton. And the downtown core is the other buildings that are high rises. In the foreground is something really interesting. It's a recreational area, as you can see right across from the downtown, across from the convention center. And that has pathways and parkland and a restaurant. And in the background of that is what's called the Rady Shell, the music shell. And that's where there's rock and roll concerts as well as symphony orchestra. And in nicer weather, it's beautiful today, and 80 degrees here is going to be in San Diego. But usually at this time of year, it's not inhabited because it's breezy off the cold water. However, it was just announced that Paul Anka is going to be in concert in June, and James Taylor, the folk singer, and his all-star band are coming in late April, and that'll kick off the spring season. So it's a beautiful area. San Diego is lucky to have this. So for those of you who are in the North US and Northeast US and Canada, I know it's freezing out there, I'm sorry, but it's going to be summertime again today here in Southern California. So come on and visit. Bring money. We need the tourist dollars. So with us today is Dr. Ken Lloyd, PhD, author of, I'm going to shove the book. Here we go. It says, Performance Appraisals and Phrases for Dummies. You know, I just saw that the Dummies series now includes a book about AI. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm not at all surprised by it. I wonder who or what wrote it, but I'm sure it's excellent. Either way, the series has so many helpful guides that you name a topic, they've got books on it. So it'd be interesting to see how they approach AI. I'll definitely take a look.
Yeah, me too. What is new in your world, Ken? You're working on a new book?
Yeah, working on a new book and still doing coaching related type things, and obviously continuing the learning in any areas that are possible, which is why it's always interesting to hear what Christian has to say in the relo area. I totally agree with his point. When you're going to venture into the kind of projects that you're talking about, get legal advice. And Christian is so smart. Look, we know legal things. We're not attorneys. Get an attorney, get a law firm. I would bet there'll be a firm out there that can provide you with a checklist that a company that's planning on engaging in these kinds of ventures in the US should follow. So I'm not sure whether it would be business law or immigration law, as you mentioned, Ed, or any other specialties, but I would do some checking on that. I think you could find a very good roadmap from some of these law firms to help get the process started.
And my friend Christian, you're located right now in Irvine?
Correct. Yes. Irvine, California, in Orange
Are
County.
you going to remain in California, or are you going to venture out of California?
Me personally,
Yeah.
I'm going to remain in California because what I typically tell people when they ask is I did not move halfway across the world from Switzerland to be with my wife's family in Orange County, only to then go to somewhere where there's no family.
Family is important.
Family is very important to me, yes, indeed.
Relationships and mental health. And
exactly. The life I've built here over the last 25 years is important to me, and I'm not going to just give that up.
So let's talk about how all of this relates to your job. You're a mobility supervisor for a large company. As I understand, it's not international yet, but
correct
enough across the U.S.
Yes.
And so, and you have relocated yourself, and so you know what it's like. So the issues of relocating people, it needs to be a psychologically safe environment. Of course, that is like the people wearing a blindfold and touching the elephant. You know, what does it mean to you, and what does it mean to you? And what would it mean to you, Christian, making a psychologically safe environment, a workplace, when it becomes remote, when it becomes a relocated family?
So I would say that there are two main elements to this. One would be the employer. The employer should have procedures in place and should be aware of some of the stresses that not just a relocating employee, but their family as well are going through. And if they use the services of a relocation management company, some companies do, some don't. Some do it in-house. Some just provide lump sums and say, good luck, Godspeed. If they do use a relocation management company, they should make sure that the relocation management company is very aware of the timeline of the project of a relocation, making sure that the relocation consultants who are advising these employees and their families are very much in touch with them, understand what's going on when, and can therefore answer any questions and alleviate any concerns that this family might have. Should there be concerns or questions that they cannot answer, they can either find out, or they can go back to the employer and share with them what these concerns are. Because a lot of questions and concerns that come up are overlapping. And it's very possible that the employer provides an answer and the relocation management company provides an answer that's maybe a little more nuanced or a little more detailed or is coming from a different angle. But there's a lot of things that overlap. And ultimately, the goal is to create a tight unity where the employee and their family feels supported by this group of people that have come together to help them make the move from point A to point B.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to circle right back to you, Ken. In your experience in involving talent within a corporate structure, at one time for a long time, 18 years, if I remember right, you were in the C-suite in a very large clothing manufacturer. Did you relocate people?
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes you say, did we relocate people? Sort of like, did we pick them up and throw them somewhere? There were relocation opportunities available. But just as Christian's saying, we really want to look at not only the opportunity itself, the individual, his or her knowledge, skills, abilities, interests, goals, and all, but beyond that, to look at the whole person. As Christian said, if his company or if a company wanted to move someone who is quite tied to family in one locale to another, that's something to really consider, because that's not likely to work out well. If the individual has very strong ties to a given location, that needs to be considered and reviewed, and could well be a factor that says, all right, we're not going to continue with the relo. we're really going to respect the individual's values, lifestyle, hope, family, other considerations. Because, yeah, work to work. Yeah, I can work here, I can work somewhere else, but all these other considerations could actually undermine the effectiveness of having an individual relocate to another area. So it's important to look at the individual, the job, and the very big picture and the whole person. And that's what we really tried to do. So we would make opportunities available as opposed to saying, we need you in Dallas, so up you go. That we wouldn't do.
But others have in the past, and it's resulted in problems.
Correct. Yeah, we want it to be successful for everybody. We want it to be successful for the company, for the department, and for the individual. So this is along a career path that this individual really wants to pursue. And that means it has to sit well with them in all aspects.
So are you perchance familiar with the Japanese-owned companies and relocation and how Japanese-owned companies view taking care of people?
With regard to relocation, not specifically. It sounds like you are, though, so I'm interested.
So there's Japanese-owned companies in tech and medicine all across the U.S. And they employ Americans, of course, but they also relocate people from Tokyo into not just the U.S., but elsewhere. What I've been told is that they don't allow a relocation to occur, the senior management of the Japanese-owned company. They don't allow a reload to occur without coaching beforehand about the mental health capabilities, the mental strength capabilities of the family. They just won't even allow it to happen because they know what the risks are. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't appear to be happening in the US. Excuse me. So may I ask you, Christian, to comment on that? Is that unheard of? I'm going to choke here in a minute. Sorry.
So my current employer is very interested in the family and their goals and their mental health and so on, a little bit more in line with what you just said about Japanese companies. But in my previous roles as a operations manager in 2 different relocation companies, relocation management companies, I've kind of seen it all. I've seen a very military style approach, which is a little bit like what Ken said. Here's your literally marching orders, and you better show up here on day X or else. I've seen that, and I've seen the more caring approach and everything in between. One thing I want to point out is that while we are talking about families and while we are talking about care, there's also very different relocation scenarios where you have mostly younger single people who are not all that interested in the traditional selection of benefits, in the traditional offering of benefits. What I'm hearing from tech companies is often that if you offer somebody a benefit or money, vast majority of them go for the money because they're more used to figuring things out themselves. They really want to do that themselves. Also, to be fair, they sometimes underestimate what it takes to figure everything out by yourself because they've never done it before. So I just want to paint a picture of there's all these different answers to this question out there, and there's no right or wrong answer. It really depends on your company's culture, on who you're moving, and what these people are most interested in and what they really need. What you don't want to do, though, is provide a selection of benefits that are inadequate or that are the wrong ones for the people that you're moving, because you're basically producing you're making a product that's not in line with what the market wants, the market being your employee base.
Let me ask you a question about coaching. Let's just say young people, okay, single. They're not going to move any furniture. They're going to put stuff in a backpack and maybe check one bag, and that's it. There's plenty of stores in Europe and Latin America and wherever to go get stuff. They don't need to bring all their stuff with them. That could be a blessing for the company because it cuts costs. And when that happens, do you encourage the company to prep the employee prior to the shipment of them to, let's say, overseas by taking on a remote position now? And then if that works, when they meet people from over there where they're going to go, they're not total strangers when they finally land in that location. They'll stay, say, in Irvine, and from their desktop work in Europe.
Yeah.
Before they actually reload.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, part of the training program to reduce the company risk.
That is something that I've talked about. Yeah. What often happens also is that there are business trips before that. Yes, of course, it happens that you move somebody who says, I've never even been there and now I'm going there. Sure. But what happens often a lot is that they have been there. They've had some business trips. Maybe they are working with a team that's over in the destination country, and then the business decides, you know what, would you want to go and work with these people in person directly in this country? And they say, yeah, that's fine. Also, we're not necessarily talking permanent here either. There's all kinds of flavors in between. There are short-term assignments, where you are testing it out just for a longer period of time, let's say 3 months, 6 months. The traditional long-term assignment is not as common as it used to be, even when I started over 20 years ago. It still exists, though. There are, particularly in Europe, also commuter assignment. A commuter assignment is when you stay and live in one country, but you go out back and forth. Maybe you go to, you live in Germany, but you go to Belgium for the week and then you come back. And you live in, let's say, Western Germany, and it's a 2-hour drive, right? Totally doable. That kind of thing exists. There is more out there than traditionally there was, for sure. And there's all kinds of opportunities. There's all kinds of flavors. And this really goes back to what I said earlier. You want to make sure that you're offering something that your workforce can use, that your workforce needs, and that the business needs.
Okay.
I really like that approach. It's just what we tried to do, although most of the relocation was really within the US. But for people to test the waters a bit, certainly to go there, give it a try for X amount of time, certainly, as you mentioned, all the way from quick visits out to assignments, just to see, and importantly, to talk with other people, if we have them in the new location, that relocated from our original spot. So if they came from Southern California, meet with these people, see what it's like, see how their adjustment has been, what they found that's been positive, what concerns or problems have arisen, how things gone for the children, how are the schools, how's the medical health, how is housing, what are the costs. And I remember one individual saying that he really enjoys being in the new location because it's quieter. The evenings are quieter. They don't hear as much traffic, as much air traffic. I mean, things like that you wouldn't even think about. At the same time, telling potential transfers, potential reloads, here's what it is. Here's what I expected. Here's what I didn't expect. So let them sample it, talk to people who have made the same adjustment that would be expected of these possible relocates as they go down there in the future. So to take the mystery out of it, to take the surprise out of it, really helps. The more you can do to that, the easier that ultimate change will be, that adjustment will be, if it should even be made at all. Learning what I learned by being down there, it's really not for me. It's great to find out ahead.
So the stories that I've heard over the years have been, some of them have been horror stories, whereby a person, young, vivacious woman, super smart, is sent to London from the US, which you would think would be easy. And she reported that she was really having a hard time and found it troubling for some reason to be accepted by other women in the workplace as being the outsider. And strange. It sounds strange, doesn't it? But it did happen. But what her success story is, resulting from that rough start, she wrote a book, or she became working in putting information into an app, and then she became a consultant, and now it's a thriving business, helping companies help their young people not have culture shock when they relocate, even into what could have been supposedly an easy transfer from US to London. Interesting.
It's a trope of cross-cultural training that one of the hardest moves to make is from the UK to the United States and vice versa. Because it's a trope, because everybody thinks, oh, it's easy. Same language, yeah, a few, words are different, sounds different, maybe. Cultures are very, very different. And I've lived in the UK for a year. In the 90s, about five years before moving here, 6 years before moving here. It is a very different culture. And yes, the language is similar enough that you don't have language problems, but the cultural differences are just beyond the surface, underneath the surface. And it is something that is very often not talked about or thought about until you get to cross-cultural training, and everybody in cross-cultural training says, oh yeah, that one, you got to pay attention to that one. Summarizing what I just said. So not a surprise that happened.
So Ken, as we come to a close here in the next few minutes, what would you like the audience out there to learn from your experience now at this stage of your life and involvement in business, the difference between pre-COVID and now? It's the big news is AI, but there's other things too.
Yeah, the world has certainly changed and has been permanently changed. Certainly the whole aspect of remote employment was totally opened up during COVID, and people saw this can work. And companies are now trying to figure out, how do we put this together? On the one hand, we want these employees back. On the other hand, employees were successful and productive working remotely. So companies working with come in 3 days, come in 4 days a week. But it clearly opened people's eyes that, wow, I can do this job and not have to be there, at least not full time. And in many cases, people are more productive remotely. So I think the future is, what do we really want to do in terms of the return to work? Is it something we want to go back to? And then we have to really take a look at, what do the younger generations that are now ultimately going to be the majority in today's workplaces really want, and what are they seeking? And when you talk about culture, yeah, there certainly are cultures from one country to another. Organizations have their own culture, and some expect this super long hours, be here no matter what. And individuals can come into these organizations expecting a very different culture, where more focus is on work-life balance and their own mental health and focusing on them as individuals. All of this is going on. So we have all these changes that are going on in society and in the workplace going forward that will have to be addressed and understood. And there are no easy answers. But certainly to take a look at, from the organizational standpoint, what is the culture of our organization? How psychologically safe is it? And what do we really aspire to be? And how does that mesh with today's workers who are coming into the workplace, into the marketplace, into the job markets, and bringing different expectations and standards as they move forward? All of that does not lend itself, as I said, to a quick fix, but to increased understanding and communication and respect both ways.
And to what extent is today's company going to morph into like a graduate school, a university of learning? Because the younger people are totally trained with technology. Older people in the workplace are struggling, or they're just not as adept. So is that happening? I'm here remote, 100%. But inside companies, are the younger people mentoring the older people in the workforce about using technology, how to get things done better, faster?
In many organizations, absolutely, which is such a paradigm shift from the so-called old days when the apprentices would come in and the so-called senior employees would explain how to do all of this. Whereas now it's really a two-way street. Certainly, experienced managers have a good amount to train and do so from the standpoint of coaching their employees. At the same time, there's so much to be learned from the new hires and from the generations that have been brought up living and breathing technology, and it's very natural to them. So ideally, yeah, these are learning organizations, but it's not top down or bottom up. We're all learning from each other. And that really, by definition, implies respect, two-way communication, actively focusing on employee development and growth, all positive factors that we're seeking at all job levels within an organization.
Christian, thanks for your time here.
Thank you for having me. It was great to see you both. Really appreciate it. Thank you both. And a bientôt. See you soon.
A bientôt.
We're going to meet in person. I'm counting on that. In fact, I'm thinking of, I don't know, here's some news. I'm thinking of organizing some meetings, starting in live meetings, formed around a luncheon time in La Jolla, in Irvine, and Marina del Rey area of West LA, and then in Mountain View as well. But I haven't set them up yet. And so I'm tiptoeing slowly back into the live event, and in need of sponsors. Hello out there. Let me know if you're interested, if you have deep pockets or no pockets, but still want to be involved. And these will have a component of Zoom as well. But the idea would be get together and have a couple of featured speakers during lunch, whether it's a boardroom table or, with 50 people in a room. But more about that later. I invite you all.
Thank you very much.
Ed, Christian, all the best to you and yours, and Ed, the same. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Both of you.
Thank you. I'll send you the program links later today.
Appreciate it. Thank you both. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.